realm of bureaucratic leadership with a distinguished career spanning over 3.5 decades. Dr. Malini currently serving as the Honorary Vice Chancellor of the Indian Maritime University. Her remarkable journey from the Indian Administrative Service to the realm of National Shipping Board showcases not only her dedication to public service. She is currently the Chairperson of the National Shipping Board and a member of the government-appointed board of directors of the IAS and FS group of companies. Recently, she has been selected as one of the 7 global recipients of the AA Award by the Asian Institute of Management, Manila, Philippines. She is the first woman to receive the award. Today, we have the unique opportunity to dive into her insight as she shares her expertise and perspectives in a lecture that promises to enlighten and inspire. I request Ma'am to come to the stage for the lecture.
Good evening, everybody. Yeah. Just one second. I'm delighted to be here, and my felicitations to the organizers for actually launching something Global Science Festival, which is very, very necessary. At the time of independence, one of the key things that the first Prime Minister of India mentioned was science and scientific temper, and that's how we have built all the Indian Institute of Technology and the public sector scientific organizations. So I think there needs to be a resurgence of science and scientific temper if we are to achieve what the government wants to achieve, which is make in India, stand up India. All these things have to come from original thinking and innovation in science. Before I start my talk, I would like to just give a 2-minute video on the Indian Maritime University, of which I am the Vice Chancellor. Thank you. So when I was invited for this, I said, okay, let me see. I was happy to accept the invitation. Not many people know about maritime science. How many of you are familiar with some of the scenes other than the hostel food and the sports? Do you know what is maritime science? Huh? How many? So this is not going to be a lecture. I thought it's good to open the youngsters' minds and the scientists' minds to see what are the other specialized fields that we have in science. So first, I will give a few facts on the ocean. Maritime refers mostly to ocean, water, okay? So I'll give some facts, and then I will run you through what are the areas that are covered by the field of maritime science and what are the career prospects. A few interesting facts. Do you know that the oceans form 71% of the Earth's surface? You're aware of that? Okay? And they hold 97% of the planet's water. The 3% are not in the oceans, they are in lakes and rivers, but that's only 3%. There are more than 2.3 lakh marine species which have been identified. And scientists say that there are millions more that exist and we don't even know that they exist. So the quest of science is to keep looking at what is the ocean, what lies in the depth of the ocean. Out of this, 400 marine species are actually extinct, and this extinction is only due to the noise created by the ships. So extinction is very big. Just due to the noise of the ships, there are 400 species which are extinct. So there's a lot of research on how to reduce the noise. This is called marine acoustics. Less than 20% of the ocean in the world have been charted, which means charted in depth. They have been mapped. So sometimes we don't have the budgets, but very often we don't even have the technology to go very deep. Because there is a place called Mariana Trench. And Mariana Trench in the ocean, it's a place on the ocean. Do you know what the depth of the Mariana Trench is? Any guesses? How deep that trench is? How deep the seabed is? Any guess? Pardon? 20 kilometers? 12? Okay. I think you're there. You're right there. You're a good quiz person, probably. So it's 10,920 meters, which is 35,800 feet, and that is actually taller than deeper than the Himalayas, than Mount Everest. More than 8% of the world's oceans are designated as marine protected areas because of their ecosystems and biodiversity. The world's seas actually absorb 90% of the excess heat from global warming. So the seas, the oceans play a very, very big part of our life. It is not just there. We don't think about it on a daily basis. And it's estimated that about 8 million metric tons of plastic enter the ocean annually. So here you have the ocean, which gives life to marine animals, marine creatures, some of which we don't know exist, and it absorbs the heat, and still mankind spoils it by polluting it. About 60 million people around the world are employed in fisheries, primary fisheries. Their main employment is from fisheries. And India is a major exporter of seafood. All this I'm telling because oceans are very, very important for our living, for the living and livelihood. Oceans also have a potential of 1,000 or thousands of terawatt hours of power to be harnessed from renewable sources. So there are experiments to harness power from tidal waves and from other oceanic movements, but that is also a point of research, and that is part. If we can master that, then your energy problems are mitigated, your climate change problems are also mitigated. And then there's this larger picture that everybody is talking about blue economy. It's economic activities that can actually, like tourism, fisheries, etc., which can promote livelihood, which can promote the economy. Coming to India, what is the coastline, what is the length of the Indian coastline? Any idea? It's 7,500 kilometers mainland, and this coastline doesn't count 7,500 kilometers, doesn't include Andaman Nicobar coastline and Lakshadweep coastline. Lakshadweep has about 26 islands and Andaman has more than that. Yeah? And India has a very, very hoary heritage of maritime sector. So we go back to, if you've heard of Lothal, the government of India is trying to build a huge heritage complex in Gujarat in Lothal. Lothal is a place in Gujarat. And if some of you have heard of the Saraswati River, which is mentioned in the ancient text, which doesn't exist. So what happened to it? The Saraswati River actually ended in Lothal. So it was an inland port and it was absolutely prosperous in those days. We are talking about 2,500 years ago. So our maritime history goes back to that. And after that, there have been our Cholas in South India. They were great mariners. They did not go to conquer, but they actually set sail with just, there is no engine power, there is no science and technology, modern science and technology available, but they went right up to Southeast Asia, they went to Indonesia, and if Bali has a lot of Hindu practices today, it's because the Cholas took them there. And then the last of it is Chhatrapati Shivaji, who was the ruler of the Maratha Empire in Western Maharashtra. He formed the first navy, the origin of Indian Navy, and that's why the Prime Minister has unveiled new emblems for the Navy and taken it from Chhatrapati Shivaji's emblems. So that is the introduction to the oceans, to India, the important significance. And now I will go to, start slideshow. Here, no? Okay. So I thought I'll just spend a few minutes telling you about unveiling maritime sciences and the prospects. Now, marine science, as I mentioned, plays a critical role in understanding the complex and dynamic nature of the oceans, as well as the significance of life on Earth. They contemplate the intrinsic qualities of the ecosystem, the interplay of economics, the delicate harmony of the environment, the subtle fluctuations in climate, and the profound impact of culture. So it's a very diverse field, and this presentation will take you on a short voyage on what marine sciences is all about, its historical evolution, the scope and challenges, and career prospects. So what is maritime science? It's basically a multidisciplinary field. It is the confluence of exploration of oceans. And increasingly, it is not just oceans, it's also interface of ocean and land. It is also, from an academic perspective, it covers physical, chemical, biological, and engineering components of oceans, and its interaction with living and non-living things. So it is not just engines, it's about a whole ecosystem. It encompasses fields like oceanography, meteorology, climatic sciences, marine biology, geology, naval architecture, marine engineering, ocean engineering, etc. And this is just an illustrative list. So what is the history of this maritime sector? If you look at prehistoric era, the ancient Romans and Greek understood the ocean currents. And the seas have been used for transport and travel millennia earlier. So when there was no air, there was only bullock carts perhaps, just when the wheel was invented, but people started sailing. Then came the historic era, which is when Aristotle started looking at the behavior of marine organisms, and then the philosophers actually, they were not called scientists then. The philosophers started calculating the Earth's circumference, so that was done by Eratosthenes. And this is not to say that we did not have the ancient knowledge, but the ancient knowledge that was captured was perhaps not passed on and not shared. So knowledge sharing is actually very, very important. Otherwise, like our ancient Indian knowledge, we will lose it and everything will be attributed to the Europeans. Then comes the medieval era when you had Christopher Columbus and Ferdinand Magellan, Vasco da Gama, all of them circumventing the earth, right? And many of them did for land. Many of them, Vasco da Gama came to India looking for spices, but then they understood navigational tools such as sextants, magnetic compass, etc. Then you come to the 18th century when you have scientific voyages by James Cook and Charles Darwin. 19th century, you start looking at ocean currents and winds, and there were Challenger expedition, which was the beginning of the oceanographic research. 20th century started looking at technological developments, underwater exploration, satellite technology, and monitoring of large-scale ocean process. The 21st century witnessed the interdisciplinary approaches, environmental and ecological concerns, and contemporary issues are mostly technological, autonomous ships, technological solutions, but then it has also become more international because there is trade that is taken charge. Trade is a very important factor in the maritime sector. So what is some of the fields of maritime science, if I can just, you will be interested in knowing what can you do if you look at maritime science. So oceanography is the study of the ocean's physical, chemical, and biological characteristics. And it's an earth science that covers a wide variety of issues such as ecosystem dynamics, ocean currents, waves, geophysical fluid dynamics, plate tectonics, seabed geology, and diverse chemical compounds and their effect on the oceans. It's a study of physical quality of the seas. For example, what is the temperature of the sea? What's the density of the sea? What is the movement? What are the wave movements? How does it affect so many things? The waves are not just there. I mean, the earth is one, and the ocean waves are very, very important in creating a climate. How is climate created? This is a basic question that doesn't appear in the, in the syllabus. They teach you only the text, but the entire climate is created by the rotation of the earth, and that rotation of the earth is the wind which flows in the ocean and over the land. When it comes to meteorology and climatology, you have weather forecast, short-term weather forecast, and now science is being used for long-term weather forecast also, like Dopplers. Dopplers are used to forecast the weather. But climatology itself is primarily concerned with natural and anthropogenic causes that determine long-term weather patterns. Then you have marine biology. I think there's supposed to be a video here. Yeah. How does one play the video? It's okay. It doesn't play, no? I saw one. There was one thing, right? Oh. This was the most interesting part of... Anyway, so marine biology is a study of marine organisms, and there are millions of them in the ocean, their behavior and their interaction with the environment. So it's a very, very fast field, and most researchers in science limit themselves to a certain section of marine biology. There's also molecular biology, which is a part of marine biology. Then this also has a video actually. 1 second. No? Anyway, so this is about architecture, naval architecture and ocean engineering. So what do naval architects and engineers do? They design ships and submarines. They design anything that goes out into the sea and the oceans. They look at the stability and maneuverability, the structures which are required to withstand the pressure of the ocean waves. And the ocean engineers, on the other hand, so that's about the naval architects. The ocean engineers study the structures which don't keep moving too much, like offshore structures, port structures, harbor coastal structures, etc. And then where these two meet, the coastal structures and the ocean structures meet, is what hydrodynamics. That's the other field, interaction of the above structures. What do hydrodynamics do? It applies physics, it applies chemistry, it talks about the motion of fluids, forces acting on bodies submerged in them, and the relative motion of bodies. So it also looks at laws of conservation of mass, momentum, and energy. And this is a very, very dynamic field, and as the technology grows, the challenges in this field also increases. Marine engineering is another sector where the marine engineers are responsible for the operation, maintenance, repair, and monitoring of all the mechanical and electrical systems in engines. So this applies to sea-going vessels, but it also applies to submarines, to aircraft carriers which are employed in the Navy, to offshore structures, to cruise ships, sailboats, yachts. They all require marine engineering expertise, and increasingly there are new fields because the fuel is changing, the ships are becoming more smart ships, so a lot of sensor and electronics which are coming up. Originally, when we say it was only sailboats which went right up to Indonesia, it was purely mechanical. Then they were driven by power, it was electrical, and now it is highly electronic oriented. Navigation and nautical sciences, these are they study the science and art of how to safely steer the ship, pilot the ships at sea. A lot of it is about instrumentation, navigational instrumentation, and very interesting part is electronic and celestial navigation. Initially, they navigate following the stars. That's when the sextants came into place. Those are old instruments, and now it is all mostly electronic. Now the marine engineers go to become the chief engineers of ships when they enter the merchant navy, and the nautical people, those who study nautical science, they become the captain. So they are the ones who say ahoy, ahoy to port, to the starboard, etc. And allied with all these fields is the field of maritime law, because when trade expanded and it became international, then you needed some international laws to regulate the trade, regulate the ships, regulate the ports, etc. So you have a huge number of international maritime laws. There are international maritime conventions which are brought out by the International Maritime Organization, which is headquartered in London. So there are maritime conventions and treaties, there are shipping and navigation regulations, there is maritime jurisdiction and boundaries. For example, if you take India, how far does the jurisdiction of India go? You know, it goes, the Coast Guard is up to 15 kilometers. Beyond that, there is somebody else, and beyond that, there's an economic zone, exclusive economic zone. And these are very important because now India wants to explore the seabed for minerals, seabed for many other things. So these conventions determine how can you, to what extent you can go to explore the minerals. Then there is very, very important is environmental protection. There is a convention called MARPOL, marine pollution. How much of, what are the fuels that can be used to reduce air pollution? For example, the International Maritime Organization has said that all ships have to reduce by 2030 to an extent of 50% compared to the pollution level that they created in 2008. So there's a constant scientific work going on to get less polluting fuel. The same thing about waste disposal. So as I said, the waste is disposed in the sea. There are conventions as to how the waste has to be treated before disposing in the sea. Then there's maritime safety and security, which are cargo and shipping contracts, maritime labor laws, there is liabilities and compensation. So, for example, just 2 years back on the coast of Chennai, there was an oil spill. 2 ships actually just crashed into each other, and there was oil spill. So there's a whole lot of people who have to work around this. How is the oil spill to be treated? How is it to be removed? Very difficult to remove oil spill. There is biomediation which is required. So there are people working from that field to see how oil spills and other waste can be removed. Then there is insurance. How do you treat this? It's a very complicated international insurance law. And every engineer or scientist who works in this field or who's actually sailing on board or sailing or taking offshore jobs have to know how to deal with these insurance agencies also. Okay. So now the government increasingly has given great importance for maritime sector. One of the key reasons is of course geopolitics. So we should understand that science and arts, science and politics are always interconnected. So look at the China war. China is trying to say that the entire South China Sea belongs to China, and they are not really willing to admit that the exclusive economic zone does not permit China to go into South China Sea, without any limitation. So there's Philippines fighting with China, and there is maritime security. Now, there is this Strait of Hormuz in Middle East with all the war going on between Israel and Jordan there. The entire shipping trade has been affected. So all this has highlighted the importance of maritime trade, which was actually not so highlighted in the past. And that's why the government has come up with many of these initiatives. The blue economy is, of course, to ensure self-sustainability. How can we depend on ourselves? How can we look at scientific research and exploit the ocean, but in a sustainable manner? So we know that, for example, there are manganese nodes in the Indian Ocean, but if you want to, two things are necessary, two major aspects. One is, how do you exploit to get the manganese? What is the technology used? But the second thing is, how do you maintain the environment also, so that the environment is the marine creatures, the marine environment is not affected. Now, 50 years back, you could just go and say, I have the technology, I'll just go and start the exploration. But today, the situation is such that first you have to convince the environmental activists or people who are fighting for the environment that sustainably, yes, we will do it in a sustainable manner. Many of the maritime sector issues are related to SDG, and I think all of you know what SDGs are, and here we've just said some of the key things, key SDGs which are associated or relevant to maritime sciences. And Maritime India Vision 2030 and Maritime India Vision 2047 is enunciated by the Government of India, and some of the things which they have highlighted are marked there. Port infrastructure, domestic shipbuilding. Shipbuilding, India is trying to improve shipbuilding, repair and recycling. Inland transport, when I say inland transport, it's inland waterways transport. We have ignored our rivers, especially for transport. For example, when I was a kid, I used to go and buy vegetables and fodder for the cattle from the inland canals which used to go through Chennai. Now that has become just a receptacle for wastewater. But government is trying to improve that, because if you promote inland waterways transport, the cost of transporting through inland waterways is much lower. It's about 1/8 to 1/16 of road transport. Now here, I think in Cochin, there is this ferries which are going, which has been introduced and very successful. The cost of operating those ferries, because they are partly solar run, is only 35 paise per nautical mile, as against some 8 to 10 rupees or more if you don't use solar power. So that's green maritime sector. And of course, there are international cooperation and institutional policy framework which the government is emphasizing. Now, what are the challenges in maritime sciences? Now, deep sea mining. We'll go one by one for just a few minutes. Deep sea mining, as I said, there is something called a seabed authority, International Seabed Authority. Very, very important authority which permits countries, which allocate spaces for exploration of the seabed. So India has been allocated 75,000 square kilometers of space in various places, including the Arctic. Now, India doesn't have a law for operationalizing this. Every country has to have a parallel law. Once you make the law, then you need the technology. So both legal and technological aspects go hand in hand. And if we don't take advantage of this, then we lose the race. Climate change and sea level rise, I think I don't need to speak much, except the ex-president of US who says there is no climate change. I think most of us will accept there is a climate change. Kerala has been receiving rains in December and January, which never had till 5 to 10 years ago. And that climate change is part of the changes that undergo in the ocean. Ocean pollution, I have mentioned that. Overfishing and depleting fishing stocks. This reflects indirectly on the livelihood. This is a huge problem in some areas. For example, near the Middle East, there are Chinese dhows coming from trawlers, electrical trawlers, mechanized trawlers which are coming and fishing, and there is a conflict position there which are depleting the fishing stocks. Harnessing ocean renewable energy, I mentioned that also. How do we, this is a scientific challenge. These are all very fertile areas of research. How do we harness the ocean current to create renewable energy? Loss of biodiversity, technological advancements. Technology is advancing so much that to keep pace with it is a real challenge again. It is advancing to the extent, now robotics has come in. Previously, human beings used to go and clean the ship's interiors. Now, robots are being used. And they're all very good developments, but these are new developments that we have to be very knowledgeable about. Maritime cybersecurity. I mentioned that we have moved from, the ships are becoming increasingly electronically operated. So that is creating cybersecurity problems, and not one or two, but several. So we need maritime cybersecurity experts also. Resource management, then global governance and health and safety at sea are larger issues. So these are some of the, and I just thought I'll tell a few things about the university itself. You saw the video, 2-minute video. This university was set up in 2008-9 primarily to cater to people who go and work on board ships and then come out of ships and work on shore. Prior to 2008, the degrees were not granted in this field. You just needed something called a certificate of competency, which could be obtained from some of the maritime training institutions. But in the 90s, post-liberalization, the trade expanded, and there was a need for expanding the number of institutions which give this training also. So it was opened up to the private sector, and so there are about 180 private training institutions, but which give only a certificate of competency. And slowly it was realized that the merchant navy people who went on board the sea, they said, I want to come back and work, but I don't have a degree. So the degree program was introduced, and this university comes under the Ministry of Port, Shipping and Waterways. There are 6 campuses, and like it was shown in the video, Navi Mumbai, Mumbai, Chennai, Navi Mumbai, Mumbai and Cochin on the west coast, and Chennai, Visakhapatnam and Kolkata on the east coast. And these are the degrees that are offered. You have nautical science degrees, and then marine engineering, naval architecture and ocean engineering. And apart from this, there's also MBA in ship and port management, as well as in international transport. And this university caters, has about 19 affiliated institutions and caters to about 6,000 students totally. Those who pass out of this university actually go on board ships, mostly go on board ships. They work, as I said, they start from the lower rung and become chief engineers if they follow marine engineering field, and if they follow the nautical field, they go up and actually become captains. The naval architecture and ocean engineering people, they are the ones who get absorbed in industries which design ships and build ships. Interestingly, that is the most popular course at the moment, because they are getting jobs in Europe, because that's where designing goes on, Europe, Korea, Japan, Hong Kong. So this is about the university and the courses. And these are some of the careers that they follow once you can follow once you look at the oceans. Marine biologist, oceanographer, marine engineer, and captains in the Indian and Merchant Navy, ship designers and naval architects, and these are, and of course, lawyers, policy makers, and university professors. So once you take up this field, anyone takes up this field, these are the careers that are open to them. This is my last slide. So what are the recent developments or future trends in this sector? One is automation. I don't know whether you've heard of automated ships. It's called autonomous ships. These are smart ships which can be operated from the shore. So right now on every ship, on an average, there are about 17 people, including the engineers as well as the captains, who sit on a ship and as the ship sails. And normally they sail for 6 months and come back home. Nowadays, 90 days, they can come back home. But here, once it's fully autonomous, then they can actually, one person sits on board the ship and the others can actually operate it remotely. So that's where we are heading. And there are some autonomous ships. One is owned by Amazon company itself, because they found it's cheaper to transport and not employ people, just use robotics. Next is digitalization and informatics. Now there is a specialized field which is developing called Maritime informatics. This is basically having a common platform in which the ports, ships, and the companies can talk to each other, including customs. So you should know when the ship is coming. Is there a berth available for the ship? What is the ship carrying? Is it carrying custom dutiable goods? And can the duty be paid seamlessly? Where is it going next? How much fuel, ballast water does it require? How much fuel does it require? What kind of fuel? So that is something which is developing. Private companies are far ahead of this, but our Indian ports are also into that. So that's another development. Now, changing business models. With the rapid advancement in technology, then the business models are also changing. In addition to that, you have geopolitics, you have the pandemic. So how does the supply chain adjust itself? That's another field which is changing very, very rapidly. So those who passed out 10 years back, they'll have to actually refresh their knowledge to see what's happening today in the field. And last of all, we should not forget diverse human skills and capabilities, because as I was talking to the organizer, arts, science, where do they meet? And if you do only engineering and only science, we have to know that somewhere both of them meet. The reason I pointed out all these developments is because the most important thing is autonomous ships they don't develop on their own. Digitalization doesn't happen on its own. It is a human being behind it who actually develops these systems, and therefore the skills and capabilities of this person who is going to enter this field has to be more evolved, more advanced. And that is where the art and the science come in. It's not enough to just know to operate a machine. You have to know what are the changes, and what are the changes which are going to, how is technology affecting the mind, how is the mind affecting the technology. That's a very important, I think, a relevant field for the exercise that you've taken in the Science Global Fest. I think that was the last slide. So just concluding, we're saying the global population is placing strain on civilization's capacity, so our dependence on the oceans is going to be much more, and human utilization of the ocean for transport, waste disposal, energy generation, etc. So responsibility of this generation to know what the ocean is, what is its potential, how can we harness it, how can we maintain it, how can we ensure that I believe in something called the intergenerational principle, which is we have to give to the next generation what we inherited from the previous generation. We should not be the generation which eats up everything, leaving nothing for the next generation. And again, I won't quote ex-President Abdul Kalam, but I don't remember the exact quote, but what he said is scientific development, if it is not going to help the human being, if it's not going to assist the human being, then the scientific development is as good as no development. So all of science has to ensure that it's useful for human development and it's useful for maintaining our ecosystem, because that's the essence of the life on Earth. Thank you very much, and I'll be happy to. I don't know whether I met the expectations of the audience, because I was a little blind on that front. So, but if there are any doubts or questions or clarifications, I'll be happy to answer.
So regarding, you mentioned about the marine cybersecurity, right? So is there any difference between normal cybersecurity and marine? Any different protocol stack you guys are using, or
Difference between?
marine cybersecurity and normal cybersecurity?
Oh, okay. Um, the fundamental principles are the same, but then the dynamics are different.
Marine engineering part, right?
Yeah.
It's a very old industry, right? So normally in old industries, they will be having their own technology, their own stack. So here anything like that is there?
Yes, they do, because it's, it's nothing something, it's not nothing new. As I said, the basic principles are the same, but the interplay and dynamics are different, so you have to have a specialization in that.
Okay.
I think that's true for every field, right?
Yeah, but see, for example, if you take telecom sector, it
Yeah.
has S7 stack.
Right.
Okay, so that time, so now it is almost coming to IP layer. So 4G and 5G IPs are there, right? Here, so in the stage when it starts, internet is not there, right? So similar way.
Yeah, that
So
will be the same, but in the case of trade, it's, what makes a difference is this implications and consequences. For example, there was this Maersk is the biggest shipping company, and one time their entire database got hacked into. And it is not just their database. Now, they are not, Maersk is not, it's not their own database. It's a customer who's exporting and importing. So there are issues of privacy, issues of protection. So cybersecurity on that, not just the hardware, it's also the trade cybersecurity.
Hi, Dr. Malini, how can tidal energy reduce environmental pollution?
So if you have tidal, because you're not burning something, you are using, it's a renewable source, right? It's a renewable source. So when the tide is there, if you can harness that and drive a turbine, for example, and generate electricity, then one, you are not, it's something called a common good. Somebody using it doesn't mean that somebody else is not getting it, and you're not creating environmental waste.
Doesn't it affect the living organisms?
That is where, yes, you're absolutely right. You have to look at, that's where research goes in and says, how do you do it in a sustainable fashion? But if you look at the history of mankind, I think matter can neither be created nor be destroyed, that kind of thing. You create something, you're going to destroy something. How do you minimize it is the issue. It doesn't cause health issues, but yes, you have to look at, that is why marine biology becomes very important. You have to map what is the aquatic life there and how much is it going to be affected. See, large scale everything gets affected, but if you can do it small scale, it gets less affected. So even in dams, for example, that's why there is always a debate between large dams and small dams. You have a small dam, its effect on the environment is much less than a large dam. But you can't say, I will not do anything, because the population is increasing, the demand is increasing. There was a time when I grew up, we didn't have 24 hours electricity. We didn't have air conditioners. Now, if you want it, then your generation has to ensure that you have it, but you don't destroy something for your next generation. It's a good question.
Any other questions?
Okay. Thank you so much. Thank you for your patience.
As you have reached towards the end of the session, I request Dr. Vaishagan Thampi, Curator Science Committee, Global Science Festival, Kerala, to honor the speaker and present the memento.
Now, I request Ms. Sara Jinu from the Program Committee to propose the word of thanks.
It's with a great pleasure and heartfelt gratitude that I stand here before you to extend a word of thanks following the insightful and inspiring talk delivered by our distinguished guest. I express my deepest gratitude to Dr. Malini V. Shankar on behalf of the entire team of GSFK. Her wealth of experience, spanning an illustrious career in Indian administrative service, and her significant contributions to the maritime and economic sector has provided us with invaluable insights. Heartfelt gratitude is extended to all staffs and volunteers who work tirelessly behind the scenes. Your dedication and enthusiasm have not gone unnoticed, and we are immensely thankful for your invaluable contribution to the success of the festival. Finally, a heartfelt thanks goes to everyone present here today. Be it students, professionals, or science enthusiasts, your presence has greatly enriched this event. I once again thank each and everyone on behalf of Global Science Festival, Kerala.
Thank you. Thank you everyone for coming. It's been a pleasure hosting the session. My heartfelt gratitude to Dr. Malini V. Shankar. I hope everyone leaves today with a greater understanding and a new perspective on our focus topic. Thank you.